Wake up, California. It is time to tope from your hypnotic state. Kip up so you can slap down Prop 8. We awaken Prop 19. Be you monogamous, polygamous, as long as it is butamous. If you seek the profound, you will be rewarded with confusion, because Lord Krishna dwells not in the celestial sky, but on the bright psychedelic stages that were lit years ago by Ragni and Rado. And may enlightenment come via wrestling halls, the roller derby dolls, shopping malls. May you see a 20th century Theseus grasp the hand of the rubber band champion and declare, I hate your father. Happy Thursday, California. Happy Thursday, whoever else is listening throughout the celestial skyline that I just spoke of. That does exist, but that's not where Lord Krishna is, at least at this moment. I'm Andrew Drummond, joined as always by Alfredo Esparza, the engineer of Slammin. How you doing tonight, Fredo?
Doing good. I'm doing good. Where are you at today, Kurt? Why don't you tell everybody where you're at?
I am hanging out in the parking lot in Newport Beach. I took off work a little early today so I could go for a nice long run along the beach, do some Hindu squats on the shore, and make up for those burnt calories by stuffing down some pizza. And I'm just kind of hanging out, getting a little worn out, and just kind of sipping on some Gatorade, just getting my juices back in me.
Are you inside your car where you're going to pass out or anything?
No, I'm not going to pass out. At least I don't think so. I'm neither exhausted, but I am sober. So I think the possibilities of me just kind of keeling over into a state of unconsciousness kind of slim. Maybe a state of exuberance.
It's still a little warm out there, so.
What's that? It's
still a little warm out there, so you might still be able to. You better have a window rolled down or something.
Totally.
You have your window rolled down so you don't pass out or anything today?
No. Maybe I should do that. Maybe I should take that under advisement. Let me roll down the window, and then you must tell me if...
Oh, great. I can hear everything.
Yeah, let's see. I think the parties are just about to start in the nearby condos and the bars in this little
I heard some
pseudo-Spanish hotel that's nearby.
Sure, I heard some beeping. Briefly, I thought you were Conan. You got rid of the beeping for this last show. Did you notice that? Have you heard the podcast where he was on?
No, I didn't. You know what? I have been somewhat of a, how would you say, a castaway these past couple of weeks because I have heard no wrestling podcast. So
that's the only one I've heard.
So this was the recent one with Steve Sims and Conan?
Yeah, there was no beeping in this one.
So the beeping is gone. I was starting to get to be kind of, I don't know, a little bit of a, a trademark or something. Kind of like a spotlight of the show.
Yeah, I spent every podcast wondering what that noise was. I was like, what is that thing? What is that beep? I thought it was like some sort of he was on some sort of machine or something. And
they never addressed it on the show, did they? It just kind of happened.
No, well, Dr. Lucha said he would tell me, but he would have to kill me. And I was like, okay, I guess he's not going to tell me now. But I think somebody said it might be like some sort of voice mail or something, or like one of those machines that make noise.
Well, I remember years and years ago, they would sell, like in Radio Shack, they would sell these little devices where you could, conduct phone interviews.
Yeah. I think that's probably what it was, some sort of thing like that.
Yeah, and for, quote, legal reasons, every 30 seconds or so there would be a beep so the person could be aware that they were being tape recorded, which was totally silly because it was really easy to set up a tape recorder on your phone and just get it taped with just as fine a quality and, none of the giveaways. So you could tape people secretly and later blackmail them,
Maybe it's the phone you got from TJ or something.
True. Maybe one of the phones that they advertise on Galavision or LATV or something like that. You get a free set of shake weights with them if you buy them.
Well, we have a big weekend in Lucha. This upcoming weekend, they're going to have two huge shows tomorrow and Saturday. I don't know if you plan on watching them.
I am planning on watching. At the very least, I am planning on.
You can't watch either one. You can't watch either one. You don't live in Mexico, so how are you going to watch it?
That's a bummer. I can watch the TV, and that's all it is. And I am really high on CMLL TV recently, which I want to catch every show I can because who knows how long it's going to stay at this fine a quality.
Yeah, and how long they're going to be on because Galavision is always quick to pull the plug on something.
Yes, but the shows you are referring to are the live shows, obviously.
Yeah, the Juicio Final show, which is going to be main evented by La Máscara versus Averno in a mask match. And on Saturday, Triplemania 19, I think, is number 19, right?
Yes.
With the main event of LA Park versus Macias.
Macias. An interesting story about Macias. Wasn't he the one who apparently was abducted at an airport or something?
Yeah, but that wasn't true. That
wasn't true. That was just...
It was a misunderstanding, I guess. Superluchas got some sort of misunderstanding, and I guess Dorian Roldan said that he wasn't even, because at first they said he was kidnapped. Then Dorian Roldan said that's not true. And then he said and then I guess everybody said, well, maybe he was just robbed and nothing else happened. And Dorian Roldan said he wasn't robbed either. Nothing happened. So we don't know what's going on, actually.
Then again, we have to remember that this is Dorian Roldan making these claims that nothing happened.
Well, yeah, and it's Mexico. Something could have happened, and it probably wasn't. It could have been something really big, or it could have been something really small, and we might not even know because who really wants to talk about it?
Maybe Dorian Roldan is now going to frantically Twitter Santo and blame him for the rumor. He's
actually matured in his tweets. He doesn't rip anybody as much now.
Wow. Now this would actually be how would you say? This would be a crossroads in Twitter history if somebody actually learned from their immature Twitters and went forward. Twitter is.
There's still a chance he could show us his package on there at some point, but he's not. Yeah. He's not calling anybody out lately. But he might actually show us a little too much Dorian at some point.
Twitter should be. How do I put it? Twitter should be made the patron saint of foolishness because there are so many ways to make foolish mistakes, costly errors, and just do immature rants on the internet. But it seems that Twitter is by far the device most utilized by people. That it winds up costing people their jobs.
And it's not kids that do it; it's grown-ups.
That's a part. It's grown-ups that are doing it. Look at Mr. Wiener here, who just resigned his post today. Twitter it's almost like a supernatural phenomenon where people are just impelled to make fools of themselves via Twitter.
Well, you see, you can't blame Twitter for that.
No, you can't blame Twitter.
These guys are just stupid.
Logically, you can't blame Twitter, but so many people goof on Twitter as opposed to any other internet device that I do think it is some sort of supernatural phenomenon. They start tweeting and just something short circuits in their mind.
That's why you shouldn't follow anybody on Twitter.
Yeah, I agree. You
don't want to see anything. You don't want to see anything. You don't want to see anything that person has.
Yeah, my mind is perpetually short-circuiting. That's why I don't use Twitter.
It's a great if you have a website, it's a great tool to have. But it's not like something like you're going to be sending people people can read what you're saying to other people. It's not, even if you make it private, you're still going to add people to it. They're still going to
exactly.
People. So that's
anything that I put on Facebook, Facebook is what I use more than anything else. And whenever I put something on Facebook, I just assume that no matter how private I try to make it, that anybody could see it.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to say something about somebody's mother or something like that, I'm saying, well, there might be consequences if you do that.
Yeah, you got to think about what you're doing before you start doing something. And that's why, when I don't post a lot on Facebook, because I don't really, half the people on my Facebook page are friends, and the other ones are family members. And, the family members are a little weird, so you kind of don't really want to post a lot of stuff on there.
That's so true. Friends are normal. Family are weird.
The friends are, well, half the friends aren't even like friends. They're like wrestlers that you've never even met, or you've only said hi to them once and they're Facebook friends all of a sudden.
This is true. These are the people who may or may not be the wrestler that you've idolized all your life.
Yeah, and they might unfriend you at any point too, so it doesn't really matter.
This is true. This is true.
So what do you think of these two shows this weekend?
I wish I could see the Mask versus Mask.
Or the Friday show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am really curious. One, I'm assuming that Averno will drop the mask. However,
you never know.
You never know. You almost wonder. I mean, I keep thinking back to the Blue Panther versus Viano 5 match. You never know when they might try to pull a little swerve like that. Yeah, when I say pull a swerve, a refreshing swerve, not a stupid swerve.
Yeah, and it's not like La Máscara is like Hijo de Santo or like Mystico where you're like, oh, he's gonna win. It's one of those guys where you're like, he could lose. he's
Yeah, exactly. And it would really, I don't know, it really. I mean, either way the match goes, I wish I could see it, and I'm also curious to see what they'll do with Averno once he hits WWE. Yeah, and I'm just curious to see where they're going to go with the whole Sin Cara package.
Yeah. The other thing because the rest of the card on Friday doesn't really look that impressive, but they're starting to tease Ultimo Guerrero versus Atlantis. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know that, no.
Atlantis is going to be subbing for Shocker. You know how they're doing that Forging an Idol tournament thing?
Yes, which I've enjoyed immensely.
Yeah, well, they started doing trios matches where the coach would team up with two of the other guys, the students. So Shocker's injured, so Atlantis took his spot as a subbed in for him. So Ultimo Guerrero in storyline is upset that Atlantis is subbing for Shocker, and he's already said that if this keeps up, they're going to have to break up, and he's just going to elevate Rey Escorpion to join him in his group. So now everybody thinks that might be the next big mask match, Atlantis versus.
That would be very cool. I mean, that would make for a good anniversary show.
That would be a big mask match. That would actually sell out. Like you could put whatever you want underneath. That's a huge mask match.
If they did that on the anniversary show, I think that would be the biggest CMLL anniversary show since Rayo de Jalisco versus Sin Cara.
Yeah. Well, I think so, because everything else has been like a gimmick type of match, where it's a tag match where somebody loses, two guys lose and then they go to the final, or a cage match.
Exactly. Yeah. I think some of the recent CML anniversary shows are just like, what are you thinking?
Yeah,
it's like the opposite of a WrestleMania. Let's see how. It's almost like they're saying, let's see how insignificant we can make the anniversary show.
Well, with CMLL, I think they it's weird because they're like old school, but then they get really defensive when people start assuming, oh, this guy's going to lose. So when they start hearing people say, oh, they think they know who's going to lose, they always have to tease something else. So so then they go to the cage match or the tag match. They add more people to the mask matches, which makes it less significant,
Exactly, and it makes the thing so much less climactic than if, a handful of smart fans understand what's going on. I mean,
yeah.
So what if people know the finish? As long as you're drawing people to the arena and you're, creating a mystique about it.
I mean, we all know Hijo de Santo is going to beat Negro Casas every anniversary, but it's still so true,
Yes.
We always knew that was because it was going to be a great match, and that's what people want. They want to see a great match.
Yes, exactly.
And with Triplemania is packed from top to bottom. They have a lot of interesting matchups. And they have TNA wrestlers there, so if you don't like TNA, you can watch them on Triplemania.
That's right. You can actually just see the talent shine of the specific wrestlers from TNA without the Russo or Bischoff booking team.
Yeah, the only bad thing is like the women's match is going to suck.
This is true. This is true.
The tag match is going to have Mr. Anderson or whatever his name is. tagging with Abyss.
The man who once was Kennedy. Yes.
Yeah, that should be really bad too.
Oh, great. We're talking about Impact Wrestling. All right.
Isn't this exciting?
Wow.
Ryan Doyle, you jumped in at just the perfect time. It's the most anticlimactic moment you could choose.
If I could have guessed the very last thing on this planet that would be talked about when I finally called in, I would have guessed Impact Wrestling.
You know, this is our way of talking about Impact without talking about Impact Wrestling.
In fact, I think it's some sort of divine intervention that you did the run-in, just as we mentioned TNA, because now I think it's time that we start doing an email campaign to the powers that be in TNA, if you could call them powers, or the force.
Wannabe powers.
Yeah, wannabe powers, I like that. I say we all start emailing them. Just get as many people as we can, spam if we have to, but say the only thing that could save TNA is the presence of the original Mr. Wonderful, Rock Riddle.
You know where I stand on that. I mean,
you agree with me, right?
Oh, absolutely. I would put the TNA World Title on him. I would make him the commissioner. I mean, the whole everything.
More importantly,
that would be so perfect.
You would watch TNA.
I would actually watch more than 10 minutes of it too.
Yeah, as opposed to just the first 10 minutes, and then you'd be like, oh, there's something else on right now. we have our TNA correspondent on the line also.
No, I was just trying to wait till that part of the talk blew over.
It's the shoot fighter himself, Dan Farron, ready for action.
Yeah,
just hoping that TNA will go away, but it never will. Now, will it?
You know, one time my cable was out and I couldn't tell the difference. Main problem there. I know. I would have been on earlier, but when I heard Mr. Kennedy's name, I passed out for a quick moment, and then.
Well, I must say, it seems that Story Salon lately, the Wednesday night spoken word presentation in Studio City, California, has been on fire lately. I bet you if you put that on pay-per-view, you could get all the TNA audience watching, and they would actually jump from watching TNA wrestling to listening to Story Salon. Oh, you know it would happen.
You think so? Huh? Okay. Well, I appreciate your enthusiasm about that.
Now, Dan, you and I both know
that was a hell of a jump. But hey, I was.
But it was. Hey, we're talking TNA, so the most nonsensical jump makes sense.
We weren't talking about TNA. We were talking about AAA. You guys started talking about TNA.
No, I think
you guys started it.
I think Kurt tried to change it because he was realizing he didn't know anything about anything you were talking about, Fredo. That's what it was.
Oh, come on. We already know I don't know anything about what we're talking about. I hold it as a badge of honor. A badge of honor.
Every Sunday morning, I get up and I download for 99 cents my Superluchas onto my iPad. And
that is cool.
Did you read that story about Sin Cara?
Yes.
Isn't that so funny?
It is very, very funny. It's helping me improve my my Spanish also, because what I do is I can cut and paste and drop it into a translator, and you can figure it out in between there. But the Sin Cara story was very funny.
Have you heard this, Chris?
No, I did not. I heard nothing about this. What's the scoop?
No, I never heard anything.
Dan, you want to tell him?
No, you tell him, Fredo.
Well, apparently,
for the love of God.
Apparently, like in mid-March. It was mid-March, right?
Something it was mid-March.
Yeah, CMLL filled out the patent trademark paperwork for the Sin Cara name and likeness.
What?
In Mexico.
Yeah.
2 weeks before WWE did.
Oh my God!
Whoa!
And they used the exact picture of Sin Cara's face on the mask and everything in the paperwork.
You know what? I've made a lot of cracks about CMLL booking and how behind they are. Who would have thought that they would jump in front like this?
You know the thing.
Not that they could get very far with it.
I don't think you could really call it jumping in front, but I think it's something that's really annoying to some people, which is funny, which I find amusing about it.
I think it's hysterical. Yeah, but it sounds like something that they usually would think of like 5 months later, like, oh, we should have done that, shouldn't we?
Well,
how do we correct our mistake? Well, let's have a cage match.
It kind of reminds me of the old I think it was Jack Pfeiffer, wasn't it? The old thing with Hobo Brazil and Bruno Sam Martino, and he would give these other people and he would name them.
Lucas.
Yeah, exactly.
That specific one was Tony Santos. He was like the later version of Jack Pfeffer.
Oh, well, that's right. It was Santos, wasn't it? For some reason, it sounded so Pfeffer-like. It was hard not to.
And Hobo Brazil, who was that?
It was Ken Anderson.
It was
no.
I hope it was Thunderbolt.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
I believe that was Rufus R. Jones.
I think it was too. I just got confused. Whenever I see Ken Anderson, I think hobo. Or that's what he should be doing. I have to tell you, he's one of those guys. This is it. See if anyone else feels this way. I mean, not so much about him, but in general. Are there ever any guys that you guys watch wrestling-wise that you look at it and you go, I don't get it, I don't understand it, I don't know how anybody could like them. You know, if they basically fell off the earth tomorrow, I wouldn't be sad. You know, do you guys ever have anybody like that, or ever had anybody where just, you know, I don't take wrestling real seriously. I've been a fan, you know, since 1971, and I've seen virtually anything, and very few things annoy me. But there are certain wrestlers over the years that have really annoyed me, and he's one of them.
Yeah. Is he still that bad?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, he's the one that's neither here nor there.
No, I don't watch
TNA.
Well, no, he makes me nuts, like with the stuff he does where, you know, in theory, the idea of, you know, when you're getting a body slam, trying to kick or whatever to get out of it is not a bad idea. But the main thing is, when you're doing that, you're just dead weighting yourself for your opponent. You're making him look bad, and you're going to either get him or yourself injured, and that always just makes me nuts. I mean, it's something, if you want to work something out with your, you know, with your opponent or whatever to do something like that, do it. But this stuff he does, it's just goofy, and I think he's dangerous.
Yeah.
And that's where I draw the line personally. Is I don't care if somebody's a dull worker. If, you know, he's not much of a worker but has kind of an aura about him, as long as he's not hurting his opponent. I mean, that's why I couldn't stand Ultimate Warrior, he was hurting people.
Well, he's another guy on my list,
talent, yeah, if somebody has no talent but he's getting over and he's not injuring anybody, then push him. By all means, push him.
I like the one with Dingo Warrior. Remember when he had that little mustache and face paint?
I'm still trying to figure out. I'm just trying to imagine that booking meeting. Here's all these guys sitting in the sportatorium. It's boiling hot, you know, and Fritz is sitting there going, you know, I think we ought to name him after a dog from Australia.
Who's Dingo Warrior? What the hell?
You know.
Well, you know, they picked that name from a previous wrestler.
Oh, what wrestler?
Dingo the Sundowner.
Oh, really?
Who was?
Oh my God, you're right. I forgot all about that.
And he was the guy who wrestled briefly in L.A. as the Fabulous Aussie. And I'm blanking on what his actual name is now.
It wasn't that Les. It was Les something, wasn't it?
Les Charles?
No, I don't think it was Charles, but I want to look that up. But
Les Thatcher was Les Thatcher.
No, but what I remember most about the Fabulous Aussie was, you know, he came out like in a brown singlet and had the boomerang, of course, and the hat. And he wasn't really anything more than a mid-card guy at the most, but he left suddenly for whatever reason. And my God, they buried him on TV. Oh,
are you talking about the hair match with Chavo?
Yes.
And I remember this well because Butcher Brannigan was his tag team partner.
Right.
And Jimmy Lennon announces this match will be hair versus hair. Loser gets his head shaved.
By Jimmy Lennon.
What's that?
By Jimmy Lennon. The loser would get his hair shaved by Jimmy Lennon. Remember, he used to do the hair shaving back then.
Oh, that's true. That's true. That did happen, didn't it? Or Gene LaBelle. Because
They didn't have a barber like CMLL?
What's that?
They didn't have a barber like CMLL?
They did for Roddy Piper's head shaving. They kept interviewing the guy every week. His name was Robbie Del Rio, and he was this dork with this huge afro. And every week they would interview him before the hair versus hair match. And I'm like, why the hell are they giving this barber so much time? You know, is he a sponsor? Well, but this fabulous Aussie match, Aussie grabs the mic before the match and says, "Oh, no, I did not agree to this match. If I lose, it's the Butcher who gets his head shaved, not me." And so, of course, Chavo goes over in record time. And then Butcher Brannigan, you know, goes after Chavo, but Aussie, like, starts nailing him and then tries to shave his head. Of course, Butcher Brannigan comes back on Aussie and shaves his head. So he got his head shaved by his own tag team partner, and then he was gone.
Yeah, and they did. I mean, on TV, they just kept saying that he was yellow and he was scared and he ran out with his his tail tucked between his legs. I mean, it's hard for me to ever remember anybody locally that got buried as badly as he did after he left.
So where did
I'd love to know the story behind that.
Did he end up going to Texas or something?
I never heard him ever again.
Wow.
How did they get the name? How did they get the name Kurt Dingo whatever?
I have no idea. He worked the territories from like the early 70s, and I think you're right, Dan. L.A. I think was the last North American territory he worked.
So then Fritz just first at him and switched the other guy's name to Dingo Warrior.
You know, if I could,
I love when.
I was going to say, if I could jump in real quickly, Dan, you were mentioning which wrestlers, if they were to fall off the face of the earth, you just wouldn't miss them. Immediately, and you may not agree with this, but immediately what came to mind for me personally is Sid Vicious.
Do you know, he's another guy. Actually, to tell you the truth, there are like 2 or 3 guys that I have on my list, and Sid has always been another guy. I sit there and I go, you know, all these guys, I mean, whether they're casual fans or some hardcore fans, especially after his ECW run a while back, the original ECW, they love him, and I never understood it.
Yeah,
I never got that.
See, I think he was he's a very charismatic guy live.
Yeah, I like Sid Vicious.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I like Sid Vicious. I saw him live. I never got it.
I saw him live at the Coliseum when he was WWF champ, and this was during a period I really didn't, was not a Sid fan, but it was really something watching him,
See, Dan, do you get that?
From the fans of the babyface. Well, I mean, think about it. Think about how when he was first in WCW, how he started, getting over in Baltimore and Philly and those type of cities. He's a character. Maybe at certain points, not as much as later, but it's definitely something I think that translated a lot more live than on TV.
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, because he was one I kind of was like, okay, he looks scary for a minute or so, and then it kind of goes away.
Yeah,
because he did nothing for me.
Yeah.
Part of it might be just knowing. I think a lot of the smart fans knew about his, attitude problem, and that's a turnoff towards anybody who follows it that closely. I don't know about more casual fans or not.
Well, I mean, he would, once he got into the, you knew he would have to wrestle at some point. And as awesome as he looked and everything, once the bell rang, it was just like, dead.
Well,
he
also had a bad habit also of, like, he loved playing softball. And every time, like, the softball league opened up, he'd split from wherever group he was or wherever he was doing. And it's like one of those things where I know. Did you guys ever see that famous match from Madison Square Garden with Hercules, where Hercules would not cooperate? Oh my God, it's hysterical if you can find it.
Oh, you know what? I saw it on YouTube.
Right, what it does is he goes to give Hercules the power bomb, and Herc puts his hands behind the back of his head and his neck.
Why?
To try to protect his head or neck. I guess he thought he was going to get hurt. And he comes down, and it's like 1, 2, 3, and Herc immediately rolls out of the ring and walks back to the dressing room. No selling it completely.
None whatsoever. It was the funniest thing. I actually saw that not too long ago, actually. I saw that.
Yeah, I still remember that one. That one's a classic. But, Kurt, to go back to the Dingo the Sundowner, I mean, the dingo part obviously came from the animal, but there was a famous movie in the 1960s about one of those big sprawling epics about Australia called The Sundowners.
Okay.
And since wrestling always takes things from the movies or whatever, at least they did at that time or so. I'm sure that's where it probably originated.
God damn it! What's Pirates of the Caribbean?
What?
Forget it.
Well, see, it would work if your phone didn't let it cut out in the middle of it. That's why.
Oh, okay. I said, God damn it! What's Pirates of the Caribbean?
Yeah, see, that whole thing cut out. All we heard was Caribbean like that. So it was like, yeah. But no, I mean, yeah, they used to do that.
Are we gonna have Black Jack Sparrow?
Listen, what they should do is they should put together a trios team of based on the guys from The Hangover. That's what they should do.
You know what's funny? I could see them trying it too.
Yeah,
and not understanding why it doesn't work. Oh, I know. We could get Black Jack Sparrow, and he'll be managed by Gary Sparrow.
Oh, God.
This is a good way to hook in an audience by mentioning people that they have no idea who we're talking about.
I know, but I couldn't resist it. I just couldn't resist it.
Would Black Jack Sparrow be both a pirate and a counterfeiter?
I like that. That's what I don't care if nobody got. That would be too good to pass up.
Kurt, it's funny. I see if you remember this. I was transferring some old VHS tapes over to DVD this past week, and I was doing a couple of the old when the Z Channel out here used to run the WWE shows in the late '80s.
I used to watch those every month. That's funny.
Wait, what? I didn't hear what Ryan said.
But and they had an opening match. They had an open match with Sam Houston against a wrestler called Blackjack.
Yeah, yeah. Who was that?
Do you know who that was?
Oh, it was Jack Armstrong.
I know who that was.
Wildman Jack Armstrong. It was Wildman Jack Armstrong under the hood as Blackjack.
Of course. How could you not know that was? How could you not know that was Jack Armstrong?
Well, if you weren't around here, you wouldn't know who it was Jack Armstrong.
It's just, I never really thought of it, but of course it's Jack Armstrong.
Yeah, it's funny because have you ever seen pictures of Jack Armstrong when he started out down south as a babyface?
No,
I never have actually.
Yeah, I remember seeing stuff about. By the time I started following wrestling right after that, he disappeared for a while, then he came back as a heel. But before that, he had like no facial hair, and he had the long blonde hair, and he was working down south, and he was a babyface because there was an old radio program called, Jack Armstrong, the All-American Boy. So that's what they were, again, taking something from, pop culture, whatever they were doing that. But I have seen a few pictures around of him working down south that way, and it really was funny because he does look like a very typical, a baby face from that time frame.
In fact, when I went to Cauliflower Alley a few months ago, he made one of the coolest donations to Cauliflower Alley, and it was his photo album from a Japan tour he did in 1971. And what was so cool about it was just pictures of him hanging around all the different wrestlers, both the Japanese and the American wrestlers. And it's, typical Jack Armstrong photos when he's not in the ring, just this happy-go-lucky guy. But it was like this total time-traveling piece with all these wrestlers of the day that you could tell were Southern wrestlers, probably journeymen. Half of them I didn't even recognize, but they just had that classic, slightly beefy wrestler aura to them. And I just sat there looking because they had a whole table of items that were donated to Cauliflower Alley, and I just sat there saying, I'd love to slap Jack for donating this because I would have liked this for my own. Damn, it was the coolest, one of the coolest donations made.
Cool.
Hello.
Yeah, we're here.
Cool stuff. Dan, the greatest memory of Z Channel Wrestling is the announce team of Rod.
Oh my God!
Rod Trongard and Superstar Billy Graham, right?
Well, it was either that or occasionally they had the Gorilla and Superstar would do it. A couple times, I know on these two shows, on both these shows, they somehow got Jesse Ventura to come down and sit in with them. because obviously they were in such bad shape, when it came to the announcing. And
well, they wanted Jesse to get the rub from Rod Trongard,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, especially because of the fact that there's a couple of great things about the LA ones. First of all, one of them is really nice because it's like one of the first appearances of Curt Hennig. Because what they used to do in those days is the guys would come in and maybe before they figured out what to do with them or what they wanted them to be character-like or put them on TV or whatever,
that. Yeah.
They would go around and they would just wrestle house shows. And I remember one time, that's how I saw Rick Rude the first time. But with Curt Hennig, he had just come in and they put him up against
S.D. Jones, I think.
S.D. Jones, you're right, exactly, S.D. Jones, and it was so funny because there's nary a mention of Mr. Perfect at all. It's just Curt Hennig all throughout the whole thing.
It was right off of his AWA stance.
Yeah, right off of that, and this was the same show where you had Owen Hart as the Blue Angel before with the different mask or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
So those are great shows, but
that's
also
a great match too. The Owen Hart Barry Horowitz match.
That's a great one too. That's one from one of the later shows. This was an earlier one.
Well, I think I have the same show you're talking about. It's the first time I ever saw.
No, you know what? I think you're right, Bix. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think they wrestled more than once, obviously, because they were good opponents for each other.
Yeah.
Some of those LA shows are really good. There's and it's just ironic because of with the death of Randy Savage. You watching Savage work with Andre the Giant, and my God, the guy deserves the Nobel Prize. I mean, because poor old Andre was in such bad shape at that point.
Yeah.
But Savage just worked his ass off.
Yeah.
And and that also this was some of the Rick Rude, Jake Roberts
match. Right.
They were doing there, and I remember. I don't know if it's on. I don't know if it's this one. I haven't looked at it that close. This is also around the same time they did the angle with Andre and Jake, where Jake gave him the supposed heart attack with the snake. But on the LA show, the snake bit Jake, and he's bleeding like a sieve from his hand.
Oh, that's right. I do remember that.
Yeah, exactly, and that's always a great. So it was too bad. I mean, I used to enjoy them. They either would broadcast them. I think they did them live until they got a feeling what Rod Trongard and Superstar were doing.
Maybe this wasn't a good idea.
Yeah, what they would do is, like, if the show was on a Saturday night, and usually the LA shows were Saturday nights, they would run it at 11.
Yes. And what else they would do is they would tend to, as house shows do, they would tend to sort of improvise more, and that was some of the funniest things about that Z Channel Wrestling.
Yeah.
I remember very clearly an Andre match. I think it was Andre against Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and he had a running shouting match between him and Superstar Billy Graham, and Billy Graham taking off his jacket, threatening to come into the ring, and Andre saying, "You sit down and shut up."
Well, they had a great. This was the one they did where it was where Savage came. I think this, and I don't know, and I don't think this was a Saturday night main event, because sometimes we start transferring this stuff, it all blurs together. But I believe this was the Andre Savage match. Was the one where Andre grabbed Elizabeth by the ankle.
Yeah, that was not Saturday Night's main event. That was
LA. Okay,
that was LA.
And Savage got counted out trying to take care of her, and he came back and cut just this great promo later. This came out just in his trunks with the towel across his shoulders, and did this great promo. And it's funny how after someone passes away that way, all of a sudden they inadvertently start popping up. I mean, it wasn't even a matter of searching for it. You just wind up. I've been watching the best of Nitro, the WWE one, and I've only done the first disc so far.
Why would you watch that? You already saw the whole thing.
What?
You lived it.
I lived it, but you know what? This was 16 years ago, and it's funny to watch it now knowing what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And you watch that in the very beginning, and, there's some great Savage stuff on it. There's a great Eddie Guerrero-Ric Flair match on there.
Yeah.
Which, it's one of those things where you talk about the whole psychology of, Guerrero injures his leg, and then, but they don't tip it off and do it right away. He goes on and it goes on like he's really hurt for like another 5, 6, 7 minutes. And there's
I love that match. That's a
great match. There's also one of the Dean Malenko Rey Mysterio matches, which are really good also. But it's fascinating to watch a lot of the NWO stuff, having not watched it for years. And at one point look at it and go, my God, this was really innovative. This was really over. And know that it's not going to pay off in the end. That it's going to be screwed up.
Yeah.
You know, because when you watch this stuff in the beginning, on here, you see, Hall arise, then Nash arise, and then they had that great segment where they've beaten up Arn Anderson and the American males, and Kevin Nash, lawn darts Rey Mysterio into the side of the trailer. Yeah. And as they pull away in the limo, Savage jumps up and grabs a hold, is hanging onto the sunroof or whatever as the thing pulls out, and it looks so great. I mean, it just looks like a real situation. I remember my wife walked in and said, "Is something happened? Is something going on?" I said, "No, they're doing a really good job of making it look like, because there's only one bad bit of selling in the entire thing, is that it's when they cut back. Bagwell's down to the ground, and Scotty Riggs comes over.
Yeah.
And he has this moment where he holds his hands out and goes, "Buff, what happened?" Like that, and then he turns around and eats a trash can from Nash. But there's just that momentary, that thing about, like, do I turn now? What do I do? That kind of thing. And then in the meantime, and all the Flair's throwing a fit. And this is the only sad thing about watching it also. Flair comes out with Elizabeth and Woman.
Yeah.
And
yes.
And Woman's crying and screaming over Arn's body, and then somebody keeps saying, Ray says there were 4 of them or 5 of them. Ray said there was more. Who were they?
They never paid that off either.
No, they never. Well, that's not a surprise. I mean, the whole idea was that to me, the biggest. I mean, I like the idea if they had just kept it really, really small, and the Hogan thing. Of course, Hogan had to be in on something like that, but it worked for him. It's just when they added 8,000 guys, is when it, and you had NWO.
They never let the story die either. It reminds me of even really good TV series that, instead of concluding the TV series, they make a couple of seasons that don't make sense. Like,
or they do a horrible spinoff. Yeah,
and as much as I love the Sopranos, it's like those last few seasons. It's like, okay, we can't decide. Let's improvise. It's like,
yeah.
Yeah, but I kind of disagree with you on that. But
no, I'm right
the Sopranos, I kind of like that. Yeah,
well, they did plan to have a much shorter show originally.
Yeah, exactly. But also, this again, when you look at it, you go, my God, this was so great. How could they screw it up?
And then you start watching all the talent on those shows too, and it's like, how did they screw this up? They didn't.
Exactly. You look at all that stuff on there, and you just know that, and that's just right there. This is what we've talked about before, how the whole idea of the cool heel, while it's kind of fun to want to play that character, if you don't get retribution, people get tired of it, and that's what it was. The NWO never, ever lost.
Yeah.
They never lost, and they never even had these frustrating moments. I was watching on YouTube about a week ago an old match from Houston with Jose Lothario against Ken Patera. And, Ken Patera, of course, outsizes Lothario, and in the match he eventually beats him clean with his full Nelson.
Yeah.
But when Jose Lothario would make his comebacks, he would, belt Patera in the face, and Patera would grab his face and sell it like just the biggest baby. Like, oh my God, you hit me, ouch. And people were loving it. I mean, they want to see the heel get hurt, even if he's going to go over.
Well,
they love those moments of him being a brat and a baby.
Well, that's why also, one of the coolest things I always remember, and is seeing if you can find, there's some old films around that exist of this, was George Crybaby Cannon. Because here was this guy who was gigantic and all this stuff, and, supposedly if you hit him in the stomach, it couldn't hurt him. But when he really got, like, upset or frustrated or hit or whatever, he would sit down in the middle of the ring and start to cry.
Yeah.
And it was hysterical. What a great piece of heat that was.
And fans live for that.
Yeah.
They want to see the guy get his just desserts, even if it's only for a few minutes.
Yeah, and that's what it was. That's what I was noticing also in the beginning of these NWO sketches and whatever. They'd be in the ring, And that's probably one of the last times I've ever seen fans throw stuff at wrestlers. I mean, really. I mean, think about it these days. It's amazing. Back when we all first started watching it, there was always situations where if you were at the matches or watching TV, somebody would throw something in the ring or whatever. But this is a situation.
There were bullets flying at the Olympic Auditorium. What are you talking about?
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, I mean, they just throw that kind of stuff in the middle. I always wonder how mad Vince got when they were in the middle of doing that whole thing with Austin and somebody threw the blow-up punch a clown. Do you remember that one?
No,
I don't remember that.
Is when Jeff Jarrett came back. I remember he was doing this sort of shooty, serious promo.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, a fan throws a rubber Halloween mask at the announce desk right as the camera is on him, as Jarrett's cutting the promo on him.
Yeah. Well, I always remember that, and they showed the clip all the time. I think it was when Austin came down. It might have been the Zamboni. I don't know what it was. I think it was the night after Austin had lost the belt to Kane when they did that 24-hour switch around or whatever, and they did something where he came down to the ring and he vaulted over the cops and started punching Vince. And at that very moment, in comes this inflatable punch a clown. You know?
I never noticed that.
I gotta look at that again.
I never ever noticed.
Yeah, it's hysterical. Just when he hits it, he starts punching. And here comes this clown in, you know, and they throw it out of the ring quickly. But all I remember was this was such a great angle. All of a sudden, it's like somebody throwing a beach ball in the ring. You know, that's always.
Well, it reminds me of the shows that they would, you know, the house shows they would show on USA Wrestling in the early '80s, where they'd be, you know, doing a great angle. And suddenly there's Cal Rudman on the microphone to turn it into a cartoon.
Well, that's and you know you don't see it anymore. But I mean, I remember reading stories about like fans in Cobo in Detroit, you know, in the upper deck pulling the seat loose and throwing them at the wrestlers down below. And I always remember a story. And again, you never know if this is apocryphal or whatever, about somebody one night at the Olympic. Breaking off part of their seat and setting it on fire and throwing it over the side.
That's
one of those things where I don't know if it's true, but I like to kind of wish it was.
Well, one I'll never forget being told to me by a security guard at Strongbow Stadium when I used to go regularly in 1981 and 1982 to Strongbow Stadium. You know, for those who had never been to Strongbow Stadium in Bakersfield, it was one of these old arenas that was built strictly for wrestling and boxing, where the ring was built into the arena along with the arena chairs. It probably seated maybe 1,500 people. But
is it still there?
It's still there. I think they've done a whole a facelift on it.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember what they call it now. But yeah, it's still there to the best of my knowledge, and people still run there sometimes. Well,
maybe it's called Scarpa Stadium now.
What's that?
I said maybe it's called Scarpa Stadium now.
Scarpa Stadium. Well, the heel dressing room was one of these ones where, of course, you know, the seat are the stadium seating in this circular fashion, and the dressing room is under the little balcony area. And the security guard, I'm just talking with him one night, and he says, "Got to show you something really cool." And the wall along the entrance to the dressing room, he shows me like 4 or 5 bullet holes. And he's saying, one night J.C. Dykes was walking back to the dressing room after the Infernos. I think they injured Chavo or something like that. He said a fan pulled out a gun and fired around at J.C. Dykes. And it did not one bullet hit Dykes, and Dykes didn't even realize he was being shot at. He was just walking casually to the dressing room like bullets are flying around him like in a movie.
Wow. Are you claiming that people in Ventura can't shoot? Is that what you're saying?
No, Bakersfield, I hope.
Bakersfield,
I am claiming
okay.
that people in Bakersfield can't shoot. People in Bakersfield back then couldn't do much of anything. I remember when I was there with Tom Hankins.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go.
1 week.
Dan, you started it.
I know, exactly.
Yeah, you had to start it, so here it is.
The worst thing will happen is now we'll find out Dark Journey lives in Bakersfield.
can't get worse than San Bernardino people. So.
Yeah,
there we go.
Bakersfield could top them. No, Bakersfield could top them. There was no Calvin Hambrick in Bakersfield, but I remember one night we see a guy, wearing cut-off shorts, and he was wearing boxer shorts underneath him that went down to his knees. And we just sat there staring. And I say to Tom, "Will you look at that?" And Tom Hankins doesn't even flinch. He says, "Anything goes in Bakersfield."
There's your next T-shirt, Fredo.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, is anybody else? I mean, what does anybody remember from the days that people would throw things in the ring? Anything really memorable from anybody?
One that I don't know if it ever actually happened, and maybe one of you guys can confirm this. But I heard a story once about a fan taking a bag and throwing it into the ring, and out came a live rattler.
Oh, I never heard that one. I heard about somebody throwing a snake in the ring, and this might be legend too, during a match with Cavernario Galindo, and allegedly he took the snake, and while they thought he'd be scared of it, he took the snake and started beating the wrestler with the snake.
And then PETA came out the next week, right? Yeah, exactly.
That's right. Yes. Yeah, back in the 1950s, PETA was a big driving force.
Came there, he would keep the snake in his trunks and pull it out every once in a while and choke a guy with it and put it back in his trunks. That'd be great.
No, forget it.
So nobody ever heard that story about the
decided not to make the joke about the wrestler who had the snake in his pants that he thought
Oh my God!
Well, I've seen some trailers for this movie Memphis Heat. We should try. I think we should try to give this guy a call and the director and have him come on because it looks really good. Has anybody else seen the trailer for it at all?
I think I've seen the trailer.
Yeah,
I don't know if they're. Do you know if they're going to be putting out a DVD sooner or later?
I'm sure
the screenings are over. I guess
I think right now what they're basically doing is they're trying to go around the country and do, a screening and like bring some people from involved with the movie or whatever out to do questions and answers. I'm sure because they have a Facebook page that eventually their plans are to release it. But I look at the trailer for this and there's so many people. So many of these guys are gone now. And you talk about throwing things. This is what triggered in my head. I'm pretty sure it had to be Sputnik Monroe. Was a very quick clip. But they're talking about this, all the wildness that goes on and whatever. And all of a sudden this guy who looks like Sputnik says, somebody threw a baby at me in Plano, Texas. and my wife was watching it with me, and again she said, "Is that true?" And I said, "I kind of doubt it is, but God, I love that story."
That is a great story.
Get him, Junior, get him.
The only thing I can remember seeing that really stuck out was in 1984. Don Morocco and Tito Santana had a Texas Death Match at the Olympic. And what one was really fun was, it was an old-school Texas death match where you had to pin the guy and, he had 30 seconds to get up.
Yeah.
That's interesting that they did it on a WWF show, because in WWF,
that's really rare.
Death was always no DQ.
Yeah.
It's a no DQ match.
That might have been one of the cases where sometimes, when they would go into different areas or territories, if they were used to certain matches being a certain way, they sometimes would do those matches the old-school way. Just
it was really fun to see
area.
It. But the funniest moment was one fan just chucked a full beer into the ring, and it just happened to almost hit Morocco in the chest, but Morocco actually had the spontaneity to just grab onto the cup, and none of the beer had fallen out. He had a full cup of beer in his hands, and so he dashed the beer in Tito Santana's face, ground the cup in his face, and then he looked toward the fan who threw it and gave him a thumbs up and a smile.
Oh, I just remember. I was trying to remember. I just remembered my story was that I went to the Madison Square Garden show about a week or so after Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
And it was originally scheduled to be Brett defending the title against Michaels, Undertaker, and Austin in a four-way. And it was also scheduled. This was the show where Michaels defended the title against Brooklyn Brawler, because Brawler won the dark match battle royal at the Raw a few months earlier. So anyway, Michaels has the match with Brawler, and then later the main event was changed to Michaels and Triple H against Undertaker and Austin. So this was during the period where Michaels was trying to get set off riots everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you remember, there were shows, especially like sort of around the old Memphis area, territory loop, like in Arkansas and Evansville and stuff, where Michaels was setting off riots. And there was this one picture online that I don't know if you can find it anymore, where there was where you see this big wide shot of a WWF house show with a smoke bomb going off.
Wow.
So anyway, at this show, Michaels is just milking it everything after the show, and very hot crowd because of Montreal, and they had Austin Stun China after the main event and everything, and then when DX is getting back up and everything, Michaels is goading the crowd, and one guy from several rows deep in the crowd on the floor throws a drink at him. Michaels, I can't remember if he catches it or picks it up off the mat, but he picks the drink up, throws it at the crowd, and hits the guy who threw it several rows deep into the crowd.
That's classic.
Wow. Nice.
One of my favorite things was at the sports arena. Tito Santana against Butch Reed. Tito takes off his T-shirt, throws it into the crowd, turns his back to face Butch Reed, and the T-shirt comes back and hits Tito on the back of the head. Fan caught it, threw it back. Yeah.
Was it the Strike Force shirt?
What?
Was it the Strike Force shirt or the different T-shirt?
It was the generic Tito shirt.
I think it was the generic, the tidal wave or whatever it was, or something.
Yeah, the Strike Force shirt I probably wouldn't have thrown back.
Yeah, exactly. It probably wouldn't have done that.
Tito shirt, yeah,
I have quite a few memories of fans getting into the ring at the Olympic.
Well, it's mostly your family, probably. That's
He probably wanted to, But, yeah, there was always, these people, these like just big, heavy, out of shape guys just like slither underneath the bottom rope and then just get their butts kicked, by whoever was in the ring.
Yeah,
I remember there was this one fan, this Latino fan in like I think 76 or 77. I saw several times on TV try to get into the ring, and Gordman and Goliath just bitch slapped him around, and he'd never learned. He'd keep coming back.
Yeah, they never do. That's why I never understood. They never do understand that stuff. Once you step through those ropes.
Well, once you go over the guardrail.
Yeah, or get anywhere close. Well, once you're in within arm distance at any point, you're going to get whacked. You really and truly are.
And then in WCW, they started sending in plants for no reason, and then fans started running in more and more. Yeah.
Hey, Ryan, we should start the story that your brother threw you as a baby into the ring at the Olympic Auditorium. That would be a good one to do. And John Tolis caught you and started giving little baby Ryan the corkscrew.
The corkscrew, yes.
What? Wait,
well, that would get imagine getting somebody over. Oh, the corkscrew was he would take his knuckle in his hand and put it at the temple and just like twist it around like a corkscrew.
It was like the noogie.
Yeah,
it was like the finish that Sergeant Slaughter did in the WWF.
Yeah,
it was like the big. It was
a blatant ripoff. Yeah.
It's what Atola started doing it because he was always doing the knee drop off the top rope, and I imagine after a while his knees started to get banged up, so he went for something really simple like the corkscrew. But could you imagine that? What a great heel moment that would be if John Tola's applying the corkscrew to a small baby in the middle of the ring. That would be.
Well, let's
he
hope
was a no mercy man from day one, even before he ever hit the ring.
That's right. Let's hope nothing like that happens this Saturday night, Dan.
Oh, with MPW Wrestling in Simi Valley at the Hub, starting at 7 o'clock. There we go.
The Zoog's Rift Memorial Tournament.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. We got an elimination match we're doing in honor of manager Zoog's Rift, who passed away a couple months ago, and we have 2 or 3 other matches that, as far as I know of, and as long as the guys show up, will happen. That's always the danger, exactly. At some point, oops, I'm sorry. Oh, I just hit the cat and the cat no sold. Okay. But no, I imagine that it's going to be a good show. We have a nice kind of synchronicity going on recently, and things have been going really, really well, and we've had some really good guys and some really good workers. So it should be a lot of fun. And anytime you get to see Ryan Taylor, I think is a smart thing these days, because I really feel like if the if, as they say down south, if the good Lord isn't with him and the creek don't rise, he should be something of a star at some point. So
right, and we have Lucky Pierre too.
Well, he'll be there.
That's right,
as he always is, walking around the parking lot, trying not to get arrested. But hey,
trying not to get arrested, but trying to be accosted.
Yes, you never know when I constantly would sit and say, oh, you need someone to be thrown off the building? Oh, Kurt can do that. Yeah. What a great friend I am, exactly.
Right.
Kurt's like the only guy in the world Kurt's the only guy in the world you can sit there and you go, oh, you need someone to do a 4-second job? Hang on, I got a guy here. He'll do it for you. Don't worry.
That's called easy money.
Yeah. Kurt Brown, as Bill Watts would say, Kurt Brown doesn't work by the hour. So that's what.
And the older he gets, the quicker he jobs.
Yeah, the MPWWrestling.com. Just mention that. Throw that out there before we get too deep into this.
Yeah.
At the hub.
Bell time is 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. It's an hour earlier. We had to move it up an hour earlier, but so people remember that. But we've had some good crowds. We're trying to build on it, and we have this is a really nice old school type of match, and that was that Logan X was counted out in his title defense last month of the Maximum title. So like they used to do in the old days, we have a return match between him and Under Pressure, and this time, if Logan is counted out of the ring, he will lose his title. Sometimes simplicity is the easiest thing to do.
It's true.
Wait, it's only countouts that the
oh no! But if he does get counted out,
no, I'm saying the title won't change hands on disqualification.
No, just a count out.
Okay.
Because he got counted out last time.
I have no idea what the finish will be. That was set up for next month.
Well, I am me, and I'll tell you. No, I'm joking. But no, it should be a good show, and they've been really, really. It was very nice. Last month we had a father there with a couple kids, and he would sit there and he goes, "Hey, can you take a picture of my kids with a couple of these guys, because I think they're going to be famous one day." That's always nice,
Who are the guys? Who are the guys? I'll tell you who's going to be famous and who's not going to be.
Lucky Pierre.
Wait. A father wants to have Lucky Pierre take a picture with his children. We should call child services.
That's right. That should be your tag team. We should get you with someone else and call them child services.
That's more a Johnny Legend show, right there.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Hey, Kurt, I have a question for you. I was wondering about this. This is one of those things where you're sitting in traffic and things cross your mind, because you worked on a lot of shows with guys who were Hispanic.
Yes.
And they probably still are. But that match was so bad, I'm going to quit being Mexican. That's how bad it was. No.
Yeah, when I wrestled Juanito Smith.
Yeah.
In fact, when Kurt was a child, he wrestled against Gordman and Goliath, and that's when they decided to renounce Mexico.
No, what happened was Kurt was a little baby, and they threw him in the ring, and he wrestled Gordman and Goliath. That's what happened.
Right.
Hey, there you go, Kurt. That's what we should do. We're going to make some big money, because I know guys would buy this. We should sell, they sell baby clothes. We should sell baby clothes mask. Lucha mask that the little kids would wear.
That would move.
Because
I thought they actually sold years ago. I don't know if they were necessarily baby size, but they sold little ones to put on teddy bears and stuff.
Oh, because what young guy wouldn't have a couple drinks one night and say, you know what, let's put the lucha mask on the kid. Come on, I'll hold him. We'll take pictures of it.
And again, Child Protective Services.
Exactly. But when you worked with these guys, in many cases, whether they were local shows or whether they were on the AAA taping or whatever, these were guys that spoke mostly Spanish in many cases. I would imagine, probably out of respect, they mostly called the matches, right?
Well, that was what I found so interesting about the old school lucha style.
Mm-hmm.
And what was most difficult about it was there were times where neither of us called it. We just kind of winged it. Which you can do with lucha. I mean, you can't do many high spots.
Yeah.
Here's a case in point. Remember that a little bar that I started doing the lucha matches at, the La Fogata?
Oh, yeah. I remember La Fogata very well.
Yes. Well, there's this guy I worked with called Piranha, who was a good worker, not seasoned or anything, but decent. And there was me, who was still just, kind of wet behind the ears. And, we were in separate dressing rooms, mainly because it was a very tiny place. The baby faces had a real dressing room, and the Rudos were stuck in the janitor's closet. So we were not able to, and there was no connection. We couldn't sneak, round back and, go in back to each other's dressing rooms. So we were not able to talk out the match at all. The only thing we could do was send, one of the guys running the show to just say what the finish was, and we'd go there and just ad-lib it. And with lucha, you can do a lot of hold for hold and not have to call anything. High spots we had to keep really simple for that reason. Otherwise, it would look just weak and comical. And one of my most enjoyable matches with Piranha was one where I wasn't going to be on any of the following shows for a few months. And so we said, let's put him over by having him injure me. And eventually we just did, a really clean first fall where I went over. And then the next two falls, he just starts trashing my arm.
Yeah.
And he did a beautiful job of it, too.
Huh.
And, you would still let somebody, say, call the match if they had more experience than you, but it was really different than when I would wrestle a fellow gringo and they'd call the match.
Right. Well, here's what I was wondering. This is what I asked that is the American wrestling lingo, face, heel, let's go home, this kind of stuff. Is that something that luchadors use, or do they have like variations on their own, do you think? I mean, like whenever, for example, if you were wrestling somebody and they went, casa, does that mean you go home or what?
They were talking about Nero Casa.
Yeah. yes. We told you we can't afford to book him on the show.
That's right.
Stop asking us.
Yeah. So is that a casa? Where?
Casa,
yeah.
Where? I think since I was kind of the gringo kind of who didn't know a lot of the lingo, they would just say, okay, let's finish it.
So that's what. Do you think that's how they basically talk to each other? Do they just go, let's finish it, or let's finish, or something like that, or?
To be honest, I have no idea.
Where is Steve Sims when we need him? I'm sure he knows.
One thing I remember, it was interesting. Now I'm sure a lot of the luchadores know most of the American lingo, but when I first knew Superboy, which was in 1989, even though his English there was nothing broken about his English.
Yeah.
His wrestling lingo was broken. Like he'd say, okay, Kurt, watch this really cool kick drop that I do. Patada in Spanish, but I was like, oh, you mean the drop kick? He goes, oh yeah, that's it. So there's a big disconnect. A lot of the luchadores back then could not wrestle American style at all, and vice versa.
Well, the good thing is Kurt learned what top rope Frankensteiner is. He realized
that's right. I was very trusting that night. Yeah. What was the cat's name? Poder Infernal?
Yeah, he's still around, isn't he? I think he's still around.
I think he is. I see his name. But I remember when he did that, I just said, okay, just relax and get ready in case he screws it up. But actually, he did it really smoothly.
Yeah, he never said top rope Frankensteiner backstage, so I don't know.
He said Rana.
Okay, he said top rope Rana?
Yeah. Yeah, that's basically what he said. The other thing I remember when I would wrestle lucha shows is if, to signify which was going over, they would just say, they said something like, you put him up, okay?
Put him up, okay.
Yeah, so.
Why, Dan, are you going to...
But otherwise, the reason I didn't know a lot of the lingo was just because I didn't speak Spanish, and they were working with a gringo who, while he could work Mexican style, was not fluent in Spanish. So
yeah, you were a bit of a rarity in those days. You and a couple of the other guys there weren't a lot of gringo guys working the local lucha shows back then.
That's true. I mean, Physico speaks even less Spanish than I do. He spoke no Spanish, but almost every match he's ever wrestled was a lucha style match.
Maybe that was Mil Mascaras's problem. He only understood, I'm going over.
That's the only wrestling lingo Mil Mascaras ever understood is I'm going over.
Exactly. So to me, that was part of the fun of lucha style, was just improvising and, not trying to do stuff that was, beyond my capability and still make it entertaining.
Well, I remember the local guys from that area, from that time frame, were really pretty much, at least all the ones I met, were very nice guys. Did you ever have anybody in the ring who just didn't like you, or just was unhappy to be working with you, or anything like that? besides most of the wrestlers in the United States, I mean,
exactly. Oh, him again? Great. Is he not any better than he was last time? Oh, brother.
I think most of the luchadors that we met, like the last couple of years, were guys who actually wanted to work with Kurt, which was kind of weird.
I know. To me, it's funny, too.
Well, because they knew they were going to have the winner's share of the purse,
Well, Kid wanted to work with Kurt,
well, they wanted to practice trying to sell really bad punches, so that's what they were doing.
If you can make my punches believable, you can do anything in this world.
But the thing was, Kurt
you can conquer New York City.
Kurt had two things. He was doing the Exotico gimmick, and he had long hair. So that's really what they were looking at more than...
Yeah, he had
in fact, a lot of guys wanted to work with me in hopes that they would do a hair program with me.
Yeah, that's what everybody... And plus, he did the Exotico gimmick, which was basically something they were used to, a comedy match.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only time I ever got kind of a bit of an evil eye from anybody was when I was on a lucha show, and one of the older lucha guys who had been around a while would see me and saying, "Oh, great, an American, he'll probably have an attitude," that kind of stuff. And they could have a bit of an attitude. But once they saw that I was trying to work lucha style and I could lock up to the right and all that, they'd say, "Hey, this kid's okay." But, a lot of guys saw me at Guilds all the time, and I think they saw since I was making an effort at trying to learn their style, as opposed to, it wasn't unusual for an American indie guy to get booked on one of the lucha shows and kind of just have this kiss-my-ass attitude. I don't have the wrestler style.
Yeah.
Which pissed them off, understandably.
Yeah.
So I think just when I showed that I was really, and it was a fun style to learn. It was a hard style to learn. But I think that they saw that my attitude was there. Nobody ever gave me a hard time. They were really a nice bunch of guys.
Yeah, I think also because of the fact that when you came in, you were very respectful anyway.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that also, let's face it, I'm laughing because I'm the same way. It's like neither one of you or I or Jeff or Physico or whoever those guys are, none of those guys were really physically intimidating. None of you guys were walking in, It wasn't like, oh, my God,
Dan can take all of you guys. That's why he never worried about anything. That's the first thing you notice when you go to a lucha show, how short everybody is. I felt pretty tall at these shows.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's
true. I never thought that.
And that's the rough part, again, about when I was refereeing back then. If you did a lot of those lucha shows, I stood a head taller than a lot of the guys I reffed with.
Yeah.
Ref for. And, I would stay back away from them, try not to get in too close or whatever, because, it just never looks good to have the referee towering over the wrestlers.
Did they give you a nickname?
This is true.
What?
Yeah, did they give you a nickname?
Yeah, but I don't think it'd be said on radio. No, I'm joking. Everybody, again, when I was reffing, sometimes you go to work with someone who maybe was a little well known, or somebody who was, had a bit of an attitude or whatever. And in most cases, the lucha guys never gave me any kind of problem. They were always really nice. They always knew that I was going to stay out of the way, let them do whatever they needed to do. And I actually only ran into a handful of guys when I was wrestling locally.
Who were they? Who were they, Dan?
Well, no one knows who they are. Well, no one knows who they are, so it's not like, But I mean, but sometimes what they did was, again, it's like anything else. Once they worked with you, they were fine with you.
Yeah.
But like there were guys that, one of the, if you remember one of the very first MPW shows, and this was different because I had ref for a while, and then I started because I was getting older, and also I could do it. I became the commissioner of every freaking group in Southern California at one point or the other. I mean, I used to always joke that I would say, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome," and I have to stop and look at the sign to remember what the initials were in the group because every week was always different. And luckily, one of the things that works really well is as you get older and as you've been around, and a lot of the guys who I started working with when I was a commissioner had seen me as a referee when they were kids. So they never really, so I had no problem with that. But there were always a couple of guys who had like an attitude, you're in the back, you're dressing in the back of a bakery to do a show in a parking lot, and they think that in 3 weeks they're going to be in the WWF, that kind of thing.
That's right.
But I like, for example, a lot of the guys that I thought either as referee or doing angles with them or whatever, or setting things up, because the hardest thing in the world sometimes is to some promoter will come up with some idea of a match, and then you have to go out there and sell it to the audience, and and it's kind of hard when you have no idea what it is yourself.
Well, in fact, the one I'll never forget you being involved in. I know I brought this up on a previous show, but I can't.
It's one of your favorite memories. You're going to tell this story at my funeral. I know you will.
I am. This was so funny because you brought sense to it where everybody was standing there confused. It was when that lady Apocalypse defeats some unknown lady, and then Johnny Legend runs in the ring, and they're going to do an angle where they have a match where if he loses, he shaves his beard. If she loses, I think she had to eat dog food or something like that.
Yeah.
But I remember they just get in the ring, and Johnny does this typical, hey, Apocalypse, we can sell it, we can smell it. I'm going to take a piece of you, and you're going to be gone, and before you know it, the dog food's going to be yours. And then she'll say, Johnny, you're a legend in your own mind. You're not going to have a beard in a few weeks. And everybody's looking around, what the hell are they talking about? And I'll never forget you taking the microphone calmly saying, okay, so what you're saying is if you defeat Johnny, he has to shave his beard. If he defeats you, you have to eat dog food. And it's like it didn't even register to them that they did not get it over. They keep going on these nonsensical rants that, just look like stream of consciousness.
Well, and that's always the hard. I know, because I never forgot that night. Because that's when I started looking up to you in the audience and shaking my head like, going,
yeah. It was me, Larry, and Mary Lou sitting with each other, and you just looked at us like, what do I do?
Yeah, exactly. It's like we're going to be here for another hour and a half, But that's, that's always, a lot of the guys that I worked with, and, truthfully, I found it a lot easier to work as a referee with some guys than it was to do a verbal angle or something in the ring because, it's pretty easy as a referee to do that stuff. But sometimes getting it across or making it make sense was really difficult. I remember being a little nervous the first time that on one of the early MPW shows where I was in the ring setting up a three-way match between Frankie Kazarian, Adam Pearce, and Christopher Daniels. And, Adam Pearce has a reputation. There was this one referee, he used to smack the hell out of this guy. But the thing was, the guy deserved it. He always did something really stupid, But, they had he was a very serious guy. And, when you're working with these guys, you go, I don't want to say anything or do anything that's going to take heat away from their match or whatever. And I remember what I did was I just took the belt and I laid the belt in the middle of the ring, and I stood back, and all three guys were looking down at it, and I just did this whole thing where, tonight this belt's going to be one of your guys, or what, belongs to the whole thing. And I did it really, really well, and it went really, really well. But I think at one point I referred to the belt as, the old 50 pounds of gold, line or something like that, And I said that, and somebody in the back yelled out, "It's made out of silver." And I remember on the way out I turned to him and said, "I painted it, asshole. All right, that's why it's not gold or whatever." But you always do stuff. But like when I was refereeing, working with Hawk, I was nervous about him because he and Sabu both had a reputation, but they were fine to work with.
I was worried about Hawk because I thought you were going to go right back at him when he gave you that shove. I thought, uh-oh. Dan's going to take him down, teach him a lesson.
Light as can be. Light as can be. And that's when I'm surprised. I'm still surprised. That's one of those things to this day when I watch that, I go, my God, I flew halfway across the ring.
You did.
I really did off this
like a rocket.
Like a rocket I took off. And but like when I worked with other guys like Dan Severin or Al Snow or those guys, even with Ultraman, Damien 666, they were very easy, very nice to work with. I remember one time working a show with Christopher Daniels, and these guys, there were 4 or 5 guys that were promoting together, and they all, they wanted to do, like one guy was a Memphis guy, and another guy was a Japanese guy, and another guy was this, and I kept trying to say to them, God, guys, you're making this much more difficult. You're having all these guys come out, and, it was turning into one of those moments like the beginning of Raw where, 8 guys come out, and they all talk one at a time, and then 8 more guys come out, and they all talk one at a time, and then the ring breaks from too many guys being in it, But we were going to do this stuff, and what I used to do at that point was, like, they said, no, I want to do this. So I would go over to, like, Christopher Daniels and say, Chris, this is what they want to do. It doesn't make any sense. And he goes, I'll take care of it. And he'll walk over and he goes, okay, we're going to do this, and then he's going to pat it out. Then Brother Man here will come in and do this. And then they would do it, because, they would listen to whoever the star was or their main eventers were. But no, those are always very interesting because that's what I like to do still to this day. I'd like something to make sense. Even if it's not, it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to fully, you have that benefit, when you watch TV, if a guy gets thrown off the roof, and he's laying down at the bottom of the building and they look down, there's no blood, you can kind of accept that because it's a TV, or they do all these crazy kind of things, and it doesn't make, or guys take a gun and shoot the lock off. And we know in most cases, if you watch Mythbusters, that doesn't work,
Yeah.
But you suspend the belief at that moment to make that stuff work. But I always liked it. I always liked wrestling when there was just a little something that made it feel real to it. And that's what I kind of noticed from watching some of these old WCW matches, so like with the Flair and Eddie Guerrero or Malenko and Rey Mysterio. There was always something that felt just a little bit real about it. And that, again, I think is what also helps sink the NWO, and that is in the beginning, these guys coming in. I mean, think about it. At that time, guys jumping into the ring with baseball bats, and security running out. And they did the one great one where they show the one where Hall and Nash come down with the baseball bats out of the crowd, and they interfere in the 3-way match where Harlem Heat wins the tag.
Oh, right, and they show the cops with their hands on their guns.
And they show the cops with their hands on their guns. And I thought, what a great little piece of business that was. And it makes people feel like it is kind of real. They know. I mean, if they had shot him, that would have been even better. But
wrestling history would have been changed for the better.
That's what I always waited for with the Smoking Guns. I always thought the Smoking Guns should have turned heel when they used to bring their guns to the ring and shoot them off. If they would turn to their opponents and just gun them down right then and there, that'd be the greatest heel turn of all time.
Well, that was one thing that did happen in Incredibly Strange Wrestling when Frankie was the postal assassin, and the match was simply him pulling out a gun and shooting his opponent dead and pinning him.
I still think Frankie was always best whenever he played was it the Tel Aviv Assassin or was it the Tel Aviv Terror?
Oh, the Tel Aviv Terror. That's right. When he wore the Yom Ripper mask.
Yeah, he wore this mask, and he comes down. This is on I had this one. I'm sure you've seen it too, Fredo. He comes down to the ring before they introduce Lucky Pierre, and he's mad because they're making him. He's the Tel Aviv Terror, and they're making him work on Saturday. And what really made it funny was you have Frankie with his accent,
Because he sounds like a little Calvernario. He has that grizzled...
somewhere from the south of Jerusalem, somewhere out there, but he's there, and he...
Wasn't he confusing his religions? Isn't it the Seventh-day Adventists that don't want to do anything on Saturday?
No, it's Jews and Seventh-day Adventists.
No, Saturday is not, he should not be wrestling on a Saturday. So he got, with his accent, he goes, "Hey, I don't know why you're making me work on Saturday. It's the Sabbath." Yeah.
And the poor announcer wasn't filled in, so he just sat there bewildered and said, well, you have a match.
Hey, Fredo, you'd remember, who was it that in Monterey that they did the thing where Tony Rivera shot off his Kafka and then the other guy had a heart attack? Who was it?
Wasn't that Zumbido?
What? Who was it?
Zumbido. Wasn't it Zumbido?
No, it was, what's his name? At first I was thinking Grand Marshal Jr., but then I wasn't sure.
That's a long time ago. I don't even remember. But I remember he shot somebody in the ring and he had a heart attack. I just don't remember who it was.
Yeah.
I'll have to look
he won the fall, too. And it was just the first fall.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I think at least I must be jamming because I am in Newport Beach, just kind of enjoying the waves and the salt air and all that.
You're in Newport Beach?
Yeah, I got off work early, so I decided to come out here and go for a nice long run and just kind of hang out and soak some rays, but the rays are gone.
Are you on the same phone that you were on 2 weeks ago? Because my God, that phone 2 weeks ago was your phone 2 weeks ago was really.
That was his landline.
That was your landline?
That was my landline. That was a big shock.
Sound like you were being tapped by the CIA. It was a clack, clack, clack.
You gotta get your phone.
Well, I think they have been watching me for a while because I do come up with some pretty controversial wrestling angles, but I think they I think they pay more attention to Johnny Legend than they do me.
Great. Well, now, Kurt, before we go, though, I feel bad. I feel like I've been talking too much this week. But is there anything that you want to go off on a tangent about? Some strange thing that has nothing to do with wrestling before we go? Because, basically people tune in to listen to this show because of you. We're just like Scott Norton in the NWO. You're the leader of this group. We're just your NWO. So is there anything that you want to bring up that's esoteric and strange?
Well, I can't think of anything necessarily esoteric, nothing strange. But I...
Wait, are you okay? How are you not... How is Kurt not able to bring up anything esoteric?
That's amazing.
Nothing esoteric, but I do see something crawling around the pavement here. It's under the pavement, actually, not on it. Now, I know insects can't penetrate pavement. This is much bigger than an insect, but it's looking up at me right now, and it's saying what I said earlier, so I know I'm not just imagining it, and I didn't just make it up. And that is that Lord Krishna does not dwell on the celestial skyline. The Krishna movement was actually truly invented when Rodney and Fredo wrote Hair and put it on a Broadway stage. So when you're looking for something really profound, you're not going to find it if you try too hard. It's just going to create confusion. So what you must do is embrace shallowness. You must embrace television. You must embrace music. You must embrace anything that is flaky. That's the only way you are going to come to a full understanding of a higher reality.
See, Dan, see what you did.
Well, you got to admit this. He sums up better than Jerry Springer ever did.
This is true. I make a hell of a lot more sense. I make more sense than any TNA taping, and I've just begun. I think I've got a lot more to come up with in upcoming episodes of Slam and Stan. Not only upcoming episodes of Slam and Stan, but, where I work, in the arenas where I dwell. I think we have a lot to look forward to, gentlemen, so much, including the upcoming I Hate Your Father t-shirts, which will be available through luchaworld.com. There is plenty to embrace. And I was just thinking of you, Bix, because I remember that Tom Waits quote I heard where he says, "I love it when I hear things incorrectly. It's where I get some of my best ideas." And I still think the thought of The Undertaker riding a unicorn is one of the greatest visions that ever happened. And I was listening to a show that plays antique phonographs. It's the Antique Phonograph Show, where they're playing 2-minute wax cylinders. And there was this song where it ends with the lyrics, where these sad lyrics were about this guy's mother disowning him. And the lyrics went something like, there's a different picture in my mother's frame. And I swear to God, I thought he said, there is a different picture in my mother's brain. And I just thought that works so much better. So I am going to steal that without actually stealing it, because I thought I heard it, but I heard it incorrectly. So, I received just a gift of something really brilliant without even having to work for it. I stole it without really stealing it. Does that make sense?
You've silenced us. You've silenced us. We're in shock now.
I needed to go to the bathroom, so I had to set him off for a few minutes so I could go and come back. So
yes. Well, there it is. I must drive back to my cozy home in Walnut, California, although it's really tempting to sleep on the beach. The weather's so nice tonight. So, ladies and gentlemen, everybody, go to Millennium Pro Wrestling this Saturday night, 7 o'clock at the Hub in Simi Valley. It's going to be totally bitchin'. And who knows, maybe I will figure out a good rant to go off on, as I wander the Hub. Yes, I've accepted that it's called the Hub. So, join us again in 2 weeks, ladies and gentlemen. And until then, if you're walking down a street in Southern California, as I am right now near the Balboa Pier in Newport Beach, and you see this bright light shooting across the sky, or hear this strange beeping that I hear now, I don't know where it's coming from.
Yell out Conan.
Yes,
Conan, is that you?
It's not a shooting star. It's either Conan or a heavenly handful of Moncel's powder. So until 2 weeks, yeah.